This is January 19th, 2016. My name is Rainbow Plasma, and welcome to Cutie Art Crusaders, episode 181. I am joined by my friends...
Burn-to-One, the special guest coordinator.
I'm FlutterGuy317. I'm the media manager.
And today we are without our fourth member, Joel, aka Atmospark. He is away for personal reasons. But that is all right because we have got a very special guest to not replace him, but in the meantime, we have someone else on this week. That person is an artist that we featured a couple of different times on this podcast, and we're very happy to sit down and have a conversation with him about his art. It is DimFann, so say hello.
Hello.
Hey. Hi.
So this is a question that we're going to start with because we start with every single artist out on this one question, which is, who are you and what do you do?
Like, what do I do as in...
Just
whatever
if
you want.
Had to give, if you had to give a summary of who you are to anybody who's listening to this podcast, what would you say?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm a 23-year-old software engineer who draws, ponies on the side, I guess, for fun.
Okay. Well, I think that's a really good starting point because
Sweet.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you was whether or not you did art as a kind of professional thing, or you're trying to be professional, or whether or not it's just kind of a hobby on the side. And it sounds like it's kind of just a hobby that you do.
Yeah, that's it. I kind of abandoned that dream when I was like 14 years old. Got over it.
But you've obviously been drawing for a very long time, almost a decade, or probably over a decade now, right?
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
That's sweet.
Well, that's a pretty good summary, I'd say. So, but I want to kind of start a little bit from the beginning there, as we mentioned. You mentioned you had your dream of maybe being an artist when you were 14 and you gave that up, which I think a lot of people can probably relate to. But in general, so you started at a young age, and did you ever consider going to school for art, or has it always just been a hobby?
Even though I kind of gave it up, like, when I was younger, I was still stuck with it. And I was actually seriously considering going to, like, the art institutes to do their art program. But in the end, I decided against it. Because, back then, I guess, I don't know if it's different now, but you can't really transfer your credits out, or you couldn't. And so if I decided I didn't like it, I couldn't get out of there. So that was my only potential kind of art school thing.
Right. It would probably be quite a big kind of risk.
Yeah,
I
get that.
For that.
Like, I have a similar experience, take art classes, and then I was like, man, this is fun. I like this, but, man, I don't want to make this as an occupation.
Well, and again, what you're mentioning there with the credits transferring, right? It really is tough if you do want to transfer it out. Whereas in a lot of other potential courses, if you don't go to an art school, then you have a lot more potential to transfer those credits over into something.
Yeah, you're taking all the general ed and stuff and all that, so you can work with pretty much any other major.
Yeah, for sure. So we've had a couple of art pieces on the podcast before. I'm not sure if you've ever seen an episode of ours before, whether or not you've caught the couple of times that we have featured your art before, but we have in the past featured a couple of different art pieces, and so it's probably a good idea that we bring up one or two of them on the screen so people can actually take a look at what your art is if they haven't seen you before. The first one that I'm going to bring up personally is my favorite of your art pieces. It's called Disconnect. And it's a very vivid red and blue a vinyl that we had. So I wanted to kind of start off by asking you a little bit about this piece, and maybe we can go a little bit into color after that. But that's the thing that stands out to me about this art piece is the incredible color that is present in it.
Okay. Well, like... what do you want to know?
Well, I'm wondering, what was your inspiration for this piece? What was the what was the kind of motivating factor behind it? Was it something like what did you think of when you were making this?
With this, I was actually blasting like house music in my headphones for
Nice.
like the entire time. So like, I started, I think, on the face, and I kind of like worked my way out, and it's just everything is just going to whatever music was playing at the time.
Oh, I see. And so did that music also inspire kind of like the color choices, or?
Yeah, I think I started with the red. No, wait. Yeah, I started with the red, and then kind of like put the blue on. I just like dumped like bucket filled red.
I see.
Nice.
And then added in the
Just
details
chose
later.
blue.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really interesting technique. I've never heard of that. I've never really heard of that before, using just like almost like you're throwing paint on a canvas and then making the details afterwards.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's sweet. Do you usually work through method like that, like through like starting at just kind of a point of like pure red and then like listening to music or something and letting it like influence you as you paint, or is it something you just for fun?
I can't. Yeah, this is more for fun. Like I do this occasionally. Like I think I just posted one where I did the same thing.
Oh yeah, the what is it? I just had it up here.
Sunshine, isn't it?
Yeah, with
Yeah, that was pretty much the same deal.
Applejack and Rarity.
Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of just started with the yellow and then kind of, or the yellow and the purple, and you kind of
Yeah,
carved
I put
details out of
down
it.
white and like orange, and then I kind of just drew blue on one side,
Oh,
and just worked off of that.
neat.
And it started bleeding into the other side, so I just made it light, I guess.
Yeah.
that's really interesting. Like that's very different from a lot of the other kind of techniques that we've heard from different artists in the past. Is there anything that kind of inspired you to do that, or is that just something you've picked up over time?
It's not really. I just kind of do it, I guess.
That's
Just kind of like swinging around in the dark in terms of colors.
Yeah.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
No.
and that's sweet to hear. Like when I was taking different classes in college, like color theory or whatever, one of my favorite teachers, he would always stress like there are very interesting, unique ways in which like you can make art that kind of like can influence you past like more than just like, all right, I learned this in school, let's try to make something interesting, right? Like you can take color theory all you want and you'd be like, yeah, like this yellow goes with this purple, yeah, compliments, right? But if you go into certain forms of method, like listening to music and like letting it influence you, and then like what's going on in the music, like paint a different color, it can make some pretty crazy stuff. Because like I think we all had questions about like what was influencing a lot of these pieces where you just put like really bright, like just in your face color that's just like it's bloody impactful. I don't really have another word for it.
It's also kind of fun. I mean, because it's like hard to look at when you're working on it. So you're not really sure what you're doing.
Absolutely. It's hard to look at when you're not working at it. Like when it's just me on DeviantArt. Like there's one God, where the heck did it go? It was a vinyl scratch. Color cones. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Like I was looking through your gallery like for more conversation pieces just on like your color use, and then that one hit me and like I clicked. I was like, oh god, like this is why I don't keep my monitor on full brightness. It's sweet though. Like I love this type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great color. It's got this like weird thing when you just look around, you see a burnt on image in your eyes.
Yeah, that's a really.
I guess if your
interesting
monitor's
thing.
bright enough.
Yeah, definitely. And
Well,
now
if you stare, only if you stare at it long enough. So
I can definitely get that. You're physically burning imprints of horses into my retinas.
Yeah. It's everything.
and there was another one too. There's another one too. I believe it was called Green.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
it is kind of a very similar
The pair to
effect.
that piece.
Octavia, vinyl, those two together.
I think the point with that was just kind of, it looked green, but it was just gray and pink.
Oh, I
But
see.
guess it looks
Yeah.
green.
So you were using kind of the fact that it was surrounded by pink to make it look like it was green.
I'm not really sure why it looked.
No, that's sweet stuff because like we've talked about it on the podcast before when we're talking about color, how like color around something specific, like especially if there's a flood of it or a ridiculous vivid amount of it, it can influence how we actually see other colors next to it or lack thereof. So like if we were to color sample this, if it's actually just like pure gray and then like pink, like how freaking bright that pink is.
Yeah.
It's got to be bad for my monitor. Makes us see how like makes us think that that's ridiculously green. Also, this weird green from DeviantArt's probably influencing how my brain sees that color as well.
Oh yeah.
It looks almost very similar, you know.
You gotta view the image in like full res.
Download this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But there's an interesting like sciencey thing going on with the colors, and it's all about how like your eye and your brain interpret colors and the surrounding colors. And
I guess it makes sense. It's interesting enough that we're like talking about it. I'm sure, DimFann, it's the same reason why you made it in the first place, right? Just interesting.
Yeah, it was just strange.
yeah,
Mhm.
So just rolled with it.
That's sweet. I really enjoy the fact that you're making kind of these very bright, vivid pieces, but like they're meant for like a monitor, right? Like they're very much digital art based. Where if you print this out on a paper, it kind of wouldn't have the same effect. You know what I mean?
Not at all.
I think in one of your art pieces, it was the purple, and remember it's the one we featured, Perch. Remember Perch? I think you mentioned you
Perch.
got a new monitor. Yeah.
Yes.
And did that new monitor affect how you make art with color at all?
Oh yeah. It's got like an sRGB mode, so color's pretty much what you're gonna see on the web. So I'm able to, like, my old monitor was like incredibly red and washed out, and I didn't really realize it until I got this one.
Yeah, monitor
So-
calibration is something that I've heard is quite. Everybody's got something different on there, and there isn't. It's really difficult to actually get it properly calibrated to display the right color.
Yeah.
I
You get the backlight colors too.
yeah.
Oh yeah, like what is it? Your monitor's like lightness, darkness range, whatever it is.
Well, the contrast, right? So
Yeah.
I mean that's part of it. So
Well, there's contrast and there's like black level too. So like,
Yeah.
even if you're painting something with black, like depending on how good someone's monitor is, like those levels of black and even grayscale will not be anywhere near what you see. And like it's kind of like a current thing, right? So people with monitors from like 2000, like 11 or 12, cannot see certain grayscale pieces that people paint like last year, this year. You know what I mean?
yeah, I do kind of understand what you're saying.
So seeing as we have Perch up, we did feature this a few weeks ago, and I really adore this piece, especially because it it makes you think a lot about the colors that are used in it. Like, I know when we first brought this up, we thought it was just like yellows and purples, but there's like blues and stuff in there and whatnot. So I guess did you kind of think that all through while you were creating this piece, or did you kind of like throw colors on the screen and be like, oh, that's interesting and that works well with that?
It was kind of throwing colors.
Yeah.
Just I started with the clouds really, and then I added the Fluttershy.
Yeah.
There's got to be something intentional there in terms of like the fact that you've made compliments here, right?
Not really. I mean, it looked nice.
Yeah.
Really, not a lot of thought goes into what I do, I guess.
Well,
like that.
even so,
Yeah.
it does speak to the fact that there is something kind of innately within us. You know, the reason why the complementary colors work, right, is because there's something that goes on in our eyes that you don't even need to necessarily think about it, and you'll still produce results that are complementary colors just because it's something interesting to look at, I suppose.
You're gonna just like them more automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like whether you realize it because through like art schooling or something, or just through like subconscious appreciation of color, there's definitely like conscious choices going on where like, man, like this color really goes well with this color, and so now I'm going to use these extremely two vivid things to make something that is inherently pretty, and obviously to you and again to us. And so like they're still like aptly made choices, ones that like probably my color theory teacher would be like, oh yeah, you know, A+, and I'd be like, man, I was listening to techno music.
I've been wanting to ask someone who's taken like color theory, is there any combinations that absolutely do not work, or is that kind of doesn't really apply when it's on like a monitor?
That
Because I've been trying things, and I really haven't been able to find anything that just looks terrible or gross or whatever. It all kind of works out once you start actually like putting effort into mixing them or like using them next to each other.
That's actually a really interesting question. Hadn't thought about that one too much. Like, because there's colors that they're like they're supposed to be complements, right? So like on a traditional color wheel, they're supposed to, like in art school, they teach you like these are complements. These are always go well together, like red and green or blue and orange, like every action movie ever. But I don't know if there's one that's like, this is goddamn heresy. Like, don't ever use these colors in your art pieces or I will fail you. Like, I don't know about that one. Because, like, it changes on a monitor, too, because you kind of move from a subtractive scale to an additive one. So you, like, in, what is it, your disconnected piece, we're using, like, bright reds and bright blues, or cyans, rather. Like, those are technically complements on an RGB scale. And so they reflect each other insanely because they're quite physically, like, opposite things on a spectrum almost. But man, like, we've had some talks on the podcast before about like least favorite colors, you know, like what do we see and we think is gross? And usually it's culturally based. Like, when I first started doing this podcast, I was impressed when I saw a piece that looked good with purple and green, because I always thought that's the Joker or that's the Exorcist. Like,
well, those colors are also used a lot in villains or to make disgusting looking things.
Yeah, but then when you use purple and green, it's bloody Twilight and Spike. Like, like Spike is inherently, by that definition I just gave, a gross color. Like, he's purple and green.
I think if you take colors as a broad term, right? Like, if you're going to take, like, you know, if you look at red and green, you know, there's so many different scales of what red and green could be that no matter what, you're going to find a red and a green that go together, you know? And so in that regard, I think every single color can go together. But if you're going to narrow it down to something more specific, like this particular red, is there anything that it won't go with? I'm sure you could probably find something. This might not be terribly related, but I remember a couple of years ago we did an episode on OCs, and we kind of talked about some tropes that would be good or bad and what common mistakes that people make. And one of the things that we talked about was making your character and like coloring your character, picking the color for your character. And we just basically recommended to not saturate it too much, right? So if you've got a red, don't pull up the saturation all the way because then it'll be painful to look at. Make it more of kind of like a pastel color, less saturation.
And but
so
then the next episode we took a look at some of our favorite OCs and we completely reversed on a lot of it. But the point still stands is that it depends on like the hue and saturation and lightness that you choose, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
the colors that go together.
Grossest colored piece that I can find in your gallery is probably green, like, but it's because it's not technically green. It's kind of this weird off-putting, like my brain wants to say it's green and call you a liar with this like disgusting pink around it. Like, what is it? That, like, really bright, vivid colors of pink. Like, have you heard what they can, like, do to people? Have you heard anything about that? Nope. There's a military study where they put soldiers, basically, in a pink-painted room, a very specific, like, color of pink. It's the color of pink that Pepto-Bismol uses. And they put them in this room that everything is pink. There isn't a single thing that is a different color. It's just, like, this padded room that is just that color. And they put them in there for like certain like elongated periods of time, and after just like an hour or 2 hours, God forbid 3 hours, these soldiers would just start going insane and like screaming and like yelling like, get me out of here. And like one guy allegedly started like clawing at these like concrete walls and like making his like fingers bloody, like
get a different color in there.
But yet they put they did the same study but with other colors and put soldiers in like blue rooms, and it would make people docile, sad, or like depressed. And so they did all these colors, and no other color had any kind of maddening or physically like temper rising effect other than gross Pepto-Bismol pink. It's a specific kind of pink. It's not technically Pepto-Bismol. Forgive me, Pepto-Bismol marketing. But it has a very specific name. I forget what it is. It'd be a good wiki search to do. But I learned about this in color theory.
By the way, this episode of Cutie Art Crusaders is not sponsored by Pepto-Bismol.
It will never be sponsored by Pepto-Bismol. No.
Be fun to look up.
So it's interesting that you mentioned Soldiers Burned, because especially recently we've been talking a lot about something that you did, DimFann, which is this series of kind of war-like, war and ponies kind of brought together. I believe it's called the War Universe is what you called it, correct?
Sort of. That's just it has like no real name. That's what it is.
Okay. So like,
so that's not
what
the
is
name,
what
so-
is this thing you've made? Is it simply just a collaboration of a war theme and ponies?
Yeah, there's a narrative, but I really can't write or anything. So, I mean, pictures is what I can do.
Right. So you've kind of like connected a couple of pictures together through, like vague storylines and things like
Yeah,
that.
that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, we featured one recently, and that's where Bernd went on a big rant about World War One in the podcast that we were listening to recently. It's called Direct Action, and it's a beautiful art piece, first of all. But I was just interested to hear, what your inspiration behind making all of these different wartime pieces are, because this isn't just one piece that you made up of because you saw a movie or something. Like, this is a very concerted effort that you've made to make like 10, 20 different art pieces. So what inspired you to get started on this whole series?
I've always liked like warfare, and I've just been like, of the things I've been drawing, that's probably been there the longest. So I just kind of, I wanted to adapt it to what I've been doing more recently, which I guess is ponies and stuff. So that's kind of where that came from. And
Cool.
I don't know. And as for inspiration, I mean, a lot of it's borrowed from what I did like before all this, like what I do in high school and all that. I had another like war universe like going that was huge, and like the same problem. I can't write, so it's all in drawings, and I have like a yellow folder that's like 2 inches thick of just war drawings, and so it's I'm borrowing from that, and I just wanted to do it again because it's just my favorite thing to draw, I guess.
Are there any stories in particular, movies or books that you've read that it inspired that folder?
The folder, like the old one?
Well, you said that these pony pieces were inspired from the folder, so what inspired the folder?
Yeah. What got me really into like this kind of war stuff was actually like the first Call of Duty games. Actually, so it was like first Call of Duty, United Offensive, and Call of Duty 2, and it was different for me, I guess, because it was so large, and it was based on something that was kind of true, and well, mostly true, because they got most inspiration from, I think, Band of Brothers or something. No,
Right.
What was the name of that HBO show?
Yeah, it was Band of Brothers.
Band of Brothers? Yeah, so it's like it's grounded in that, and like I don't know, it's just it's just a good story.
Yeah,
and I like it.
I do agree. War is something that, as a kid, you're kind of sheltered from the information, and so as you grow as a teenager and as a young adult, you start learning more and more, and there is so much history out there to learn about war. It's amazing to look at these things and think that at some point they had happened, especially because
there was actually things that went down like this.
Yeah, especially because we are living in a time in which World War I and II are 100 years or less old, right? So it's still quite recent in terms of human history, so there's a lot of information there. And now we have the internet, which helps spread information. It's kind of the perfect time for anybody who's interested in this kind of thing, because all of this information is recent and it's being passed around, I guess.
Yeah,
that's cool. Well, it seems like there must be so you got these kind of like loosely threaded ideas going back and forth. Is it something that you mentioned you're not really a writer? Is there something that you want to define more? Is it something you want to give a storyline, or do those things kind of just come up naturally as you're making the different art pieces?
There's something I want to go for, which is actually like one of the ones I linked. I want to develop like the conflict, because I don't want the because with World War II you had like the Nazis. And they're easy to make the bad guy. But here I wanted to try to see if I could explore making like something that was like a little less black and white. But I haven't really been able to like explore the other side. So that piece of Salty, that's actually the aggressor side, so the side I haven't been showing, and that's during their like pre-war time, I guess. So because so that area is actually like it's like the Dead Sea sorta. So it's really salted up, and you can't really get anything out of it because it's all salty.
Yeah, no, that's a good.
So and like aside from that body of water, that whole like what in like the story, what I'm trying to go for, it's just landlocked, and they're being sort of bullied economically, is what like I want to go for, and it's something like that, and I'm trying to work out how to do it in like a, I don't know, I guess like a realistic or a more mature way. But I'm not really quite sure, so I haven't really explored them.
Yeah. That does sound like a sweet idea, because like one of the things that like I don't know, warning for everyone listening to the podcast, my major World War One education comes from a podcast I'm listening to. But one of the things that they talked about in said thing, in which I've been learning World War One history, is basically like that's exactly how World War One Germany felt. They felt like they were going to be crushed by the entirety that were these allies, because like they hardly had any access to said sea, said imports, and they could hardly export things. And so like one of their major steps during World War One was like, we are going to attack as many ports as we can because we need things along like the sea line, or else like what is it? Britain is just going to crush us with being like the largest maritime power in like the entire world type of deal. And so like that was one of the reasons that kind of forced their hand in this war to you know start it and start this conflict, was that like we are against our will being absolutely oppressed by everything around us, because like they didn't have any kind of access to like water, to exporting, to shipping, things like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're trying to get the other side kind of shown. Is there anything in particular that you're doing that is kind of, it's a little bit, I guess it's kind of difficult when you look back at the world wars as well, because we're all humans and so we look very similar. But the one thing that I would kind of noticed was that in the pony pieces, I couldn't always tell the distinction between one side versus the other. And so is there something in particular that you're trying to, like, is there a feature that you're trying to give one side over the other to kind of differentiate them?
The only unique thing right now I have for either side is like the headwear. I did one, I think it's Sustained Fire, and that's the other side. So they have like a different styled helmet, or like in Trader, that one character has like a beret type helmet.
Right. I was actually going to bring up Trader. Yeah. That's because that was the one example that I could say you could absolutely see one side versus the other.
Yeah, and also like the colors of the uniforms. I was going for more like of a tan brown instead of the like U.S. Army green that I have for the other people.
Yeah,
right.
Or
gotcha.
ponies, I guess.
Yeah, that tan brown was key to British uniforms, wasn't it? The British khaki.
Oh yeah,
I believe so. Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact colors. It's been a while since I've listened to that podcast, and that's again that podcast is kind of where I learned that history as well.
One of the interesting things is like the stuff he talks about with uniforms, right? When World War One started, because no one really had this concept for camouflage, so it was like there was just the British khaki, which stuck out like a giant sandy sore thumb, and then the French army wore like World War One Napoleonic blue and red, and then it was such a huge shock when the German gray army, where everyone wore dark gray. Everything on their outfit was dark gray. It was like this huge intimidating shock factor because no one had seen a uniform like that, right?
Yeah.
I like the fact that in both Sustained Fire and in Trader, you're kind of depicting a specific moment in time, and it's like it's not like glorifying war or like or doing the opposite, like vilifying war. It's like it's just a moment in the war with like just regular soldiers. I don't know, it's interesting. It's not something that I guess you would normally see in a lot of like wartime pieces, but that's
that's kind of what I want to do, because that's what it is. It's going to have a lot of moments, and there's going to be a lot of downtime or whatever. So I mean, it's all part of it. So I could draw like some crazy, mural type thing, but it really wouldn't fit as well.
That's
or tell any kind of story.
That was one of the things that I loved about this work in particular,
exactly.
because like war is made up of just like hundreds of these, sometimes like very small moments. But the thing is, like, these small moments and like the pieces that you've been painting, they paint this larger picture of like this is going on in almost at like an unfathomable scale, because you take all these interactions and these little pieces that you've been painting, and then you times them by 1,000, you times them by 10,000, you times them by 100,000, and the numbers become numbing as you add zeros. And so like one of the things I really loved about all these like pieces that you've been painting in this war universe is it's all these specific kind of moments that, like, if we're talking to people, like people went through often, like seeing a traitor, or like seeing someone with PTSD, or having a moment in battle that is either heroic or suicidal. And I see these things that I've been like hearing and learning about through war, and then I see them in your artwork, and it's great, sweet. I want to see more of it.
I'm gonna make more. So.
Yay.
Perfect.
For future spoilers, do you have any ideas that are kind of in your memory banks, maybe, for working on this kind of universe and expanding it?
There's actually like 2 arcs here, because this is supposed to have happened like in the past or something, and so I have another one going on with, like, it's kind of just Twilight, just exploring, looking around, peeking around, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it, because there's like a bunch of timeline like inconsistencies that I'd have to deal with to get anything to work. And I really want to explore that part of it too. So I've had some ideas, like I want her to, find some crazy like archive or something and just like do something like that. And it's going to be like a huge kind of cover up story or something. I'm still like really working it all out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I would love to like slowly implant seeds of ideas into the universe. I have this note that, like, these notes that I wrote down on my phone of like things in which to get DimFann to draw. I'm not even lying.
You gotta watch out. Watch out for Bernd. He's a wily one. He'll get in your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's interesting. I guess it's kind of like a parallel to our world here, where there was something 100 years ago, and I mean, not the cover up thing necessarily, but it's almost as if Twilight is in the equivalent of our present day, and the war that you're talking about was the equivalent of our World War I or World War II, right?
Yeah,
because
but yeah.
No, like, because that's one of the problems, right? Is you were kind of mentioning cover up stuff, like with coming like World War I, World War II, like sometimes it gets forgotten, and like it was such a huge thing. Like, I was never really taught it in school. In school, they taught me Nazis are bad. Do your homework. Go home. And like that was it. And so I don't know, like learning more about it and like seeing this work, it like shows that you have an appreciation for what wartime actually meant and like certain scenes that you've been painting. So I feel like you're on the right track here,
Okay.
But if I may, in these notes, I have like specifically like notes for DimFann, certain aspects.
Got to the fan fiction.
Dude,
Burns
please,
fan fiction.
DimFann, listen to my fan fiction about your war universe. It's too late. I have you here.
The DimFann fiction.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Yeah, there's so many places you can go with this. So many places I'd love to see you go with this. Like you mentioned, you weren't that great of a writer. You need writing influences. You need stuff to think about, like timeline discrepancies. Come talk to me.
I'm gonna cut off your fan fiction there for a minute, Burn, because I wanted to. I did want to go off of kind of what we were talking
Sign
about
my
here
mouse
with
pad.
your. Shut up, for God's sakes. I wanted to go off of what we were talking here about the war universe stuff, and it's something that I've kind of noticed in your gallery as a whole. You reach this like broad spectrum of like, you have all of these serious war things, and then a bunch of like goofy pieces as well. Like, is that something that you try to do, like balance out the goofy versus the serious? Is it something that you feel like you have to do, or is it just kind of based on the mood that you're in? For example, just to give you an example here, so we have something on the screen. I was scrolling through your gallery, and you had all these serious things, these interesting colors, and all of a sudden, here comes high society. we've got these yes. Two princesses just sitting down and being ridiculous. So, like, is that something that you try to do, or is it just kind of like whatever you feel like in the moment?
it's pretty much whatever I feel like that day or that night or whatever time it happens to be.
I see. This one in particular is really quite funny. I don't know where the heck that came from, the recesses of your mind, but it's good. I like it.
I mean, there's also the one we featured. What is it? Magic? Like, what in the actual hell?
That is true.
Yeah.
We do need to know what the heck you were thinking
Yes.
when you made this.
Influences, DimFann. We need answers.
That's a hard one to explain.
Oh, really?
Why am I not surprised?
It has to do something with sleep deprivation.
Oh, I see.
That'll probably yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's really not surprising at all that you don't even know what the heck you were doing there, because I think everybody who looks at this piece goes, oh, okay.
I love it.
Yeah, no, I love this piece. It's so great.
And you've done a couple of goofy ones with, for example, like Octavia and Vinyl Scratch, and so these are just kind of like thoughts that you have during the day, and then you just happen to scribble them down when you get the chance.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. Is it something? Do you try to make sure that you get the lighter stuff in? To make sure that your gallery isn't too serious. Is that something you kind of like actively do?
Well, not really. I just kind of I like doing the lighter stuff sometimes because they're still cute and stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still enjoy doing these, even though I haven't had time to do like comics and things.
Well, that's a great point about comics, actually, because I was going to ask you about that at some point. You seem to have done comics a lot in the past and not so much now. It sounds like that's kind of like a time issue, right?
Yeah, I had a lot of time. Like back then, that was my I don't even know. But I was still in college and didn't really have a lot of things in the later day because I had all my classes in the morning. And so I would stay up from, I don't know, I'd get home like at 3 or so and be up until like 4 a.m.
Wow.
just like doing things. And then, yeah. So I had way more time for comics.
Good old 2013 and 14, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it something that you kind of like want to start doing again a little bit, or are you kind of done with that now?
I would like to, but it's just so much work. Like I can do like I occasionally do like just black and white ones for fun, but they're like so rough that I don't really post them anywhere.
I see.
But
Yeah, it can be difficult because with a comic you're making, you have to make almost like 3, 4, 5, 6 full pieces. When why not make 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces with different subjects that might interest people more?
yeah,
I can see that.
like there was like the last comic I did that was just fully colored was that sightseeing one where the thing is melting or something like that.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah, that one's certainly interesting.
Yeah, that's actually supposed to be a 4-part, all the same panel length, and I'm doing it for this guy Bentley, great guy, but I just haven't been able to get around to it because it's just so long.
Yeah. It's certainly something. You have some very interesting influences I've just noticed in your art. You got some crazy subject matter going on. Is that just what's swirling around in your brain from time to time?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Love it.
Yeah.
So, speaking of things that you used to do, I noticed just, I was going through your gallery and I saw, and we'll talk about near the end of the show, kind of different places that people can find you. And I stumbled across your YouTube channel. And we've talked in the past a little bit about time lapses. And I've noticed that you have a couple of time lapses on your YouTube channel. So I guess that's something that you used to do in the past as well, but you don't have time for now.
I still do it, but some of them are split up. Like I think the past couple ones are over the course of maybe like a day or 2 days or maybe like a week.
Right.
So they're just like edited together.
I see.
Like I'll still do it, like if I have time to sit down and draw, or just feel like it, or remember to record. That's what it is mainly, like just remembering to record it.
Yeah.
Right. I guess if you get 3/4 of the way through the piece and you go, "Oh, I didn't record," what's the point in just showing the last little bit, right?
Yeah. I've watched a few of your like speed paints, and they're pretty cool, really interesting. In fact, if I can put one on the screen, it was where'd it go? is one of the continuations of So Long. Here it is. Boom, boom, boom. The title of it is Lost. And that seems like another interesting universe with like an aged up Spike.
Oh yeah.
And that was really interesting. And so the only two pieces that I saw was, what is it, Lost and So Long. And
Yeah, there's like a test sketch also with the bird character, Griffin character.
What's the inspiration behind that kind of series? Is it just something you thought of, or what's the story behind it?
I wanted to, because you know they don't really do a lot with Spike, and they don't really so, and I thought this was a good like way to go, because he's eventually gonna probably do something and go out there.
Yeah.
Right, have his own
Kind of
adventure.
not be a kid anymore.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I'd never thought about it before, but as the show itself kind of slows down, as we've started noticing, and it'll have the last couple of seasons, people will start talking about spin-offs or continuations. I've never really thought about like a more like adult version, or not necessarily adult, but let's say like teenaged version, where you have like a grown-up Spike and they go on adventures and things like that. That would actually be really cool now that I think about it, and I don't know why I've never thought of that before, but that's actually a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
And it's also like what like Friendship with Magic, and like the whole thing. It's like it's a great universe, and like it would just be sad to like see it go.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think
it leads to a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think they did a good job of kind of laying the framework for other people to like kind of draw these stories from, like with what you did here with Spike. It's like, you can kind of see that happening in the future.
Yeah. I guess there is something to be said about not giving every single little detail about a story or a universe, right? If you do that, then it doesn't inspire people to work off of it without having these huge constraints, right? I've noticed that, when it comes to art pieces or fan fiction or anything like that, the longer we've gone in MLP, the more restrictions there can be on certain storylines, certain character personalities, things like that. Now, the good thing that the show has done is it's also introduced new things, new character, quirks, or new characters, or new storylines, or new locations, and so it keeps it fresh and it keeps new things going, which is really, really well done. But I'm glad that they've kept a lot of things kind of vague and open, because it leaves stuff open to interpretation. Is that kind of Spike series something that you want to do more of, or was it just kind of an experiment that you're kind of happy with?
No, I actually want to do more with this. It's kind of been in the back of my head, but I wanted to make some kind of like an RPG or something, because I've made like little games before and stuff, and I wanted to like just practice, I guess, with this.
Oh, okay. So like you can use that as the story and then kind of build off of that.
It'd be a good building point, because I mean a lot of the world is there, so I just need to make content for it. Do all
That's
the programming and all that.
That's a good idea.
Just the programming.
Yeah, and then you just do all the programming.
Cool stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of,
go ahead.
I really enjoyed this piece at the round table, which I guess is it also features a more serious Spike, but he's not grown up in this one. I guess this is with Starlight Glimmer.
Yeah,
and I feel like this kind of brings both the Spike story and your kind of wartime stuff into the same kind of thing, because it reminds me a lot of like what's the movie? Oh, good lord. They were like in a war room and stuff, and I don't know. It's very interesting to see this kind of depiction of the characters, kind of trying to figure out what to do about Starlight Glimmer.
Was there like wartime influences in this piece, or?
I don't know. I wanted to do something like this, because they have this scene in like a lot of movies where it's like, oh, this is the person that you're gonna go get, and they have like a bunch of information on some kind of screen, and, like a map.
Oh, I'm thinking
it's
of
almost like an Avengers style thing.
Yeah, like that kind of thing. Like, or what was it, like Expendables or something?
Yeah. I was thinking
Spike, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson.
That's good.
I was thinking more along the lines of like Doctor Strangelove or something like that.
Yeah.
Older black and white films.
Cool.
Yeah.
is that, we've now mentioned movies and we've mentioned the war stuff. Is there any kind of subject that you want to explore that doesn't have to do with ponies, in terms of your art, of course, like drawings?
I actually want to go back to the thing that the war stuff is based on, and also that other, I want to go back to that because I left it kind of like in pieces. It's a big old 4-parter type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It takes place over 2 centuries.
Oh wow!
And like, I feel like I like because I was drawing those same characters all throughout high school and into college, and then I just can drop them completely, and it just feels like I cheated them or something.
or feels like they're not quite finished yet or something.
Yeah, they're not quite done. And I haven't concluded their story because I came up with the end and I came up with the how it begins, but I didn't really flesh out anything in the middle.
That's interesting. So you'd like to kind of go back and just finish that off.
Yeah, just figure out what's going to happen with them.
That's a good point.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Even I know your DeviantArt is kind of like a lot of ponies right now, but I'd definitely be interested in seeing stuff like that. Something we haven't talked about yet that I wanted to ask you about is the other piece that you had linked. Something you had interesting to talk about. Why'd you want to bring that one up? The Guardian one, I believe it's called.
Just like the reason I just mentioned, this is actually sort of a spin-off of the last part of that other story.
Oh, okay.
So I borrowed this giant suit and the whole idea of them going to different universes kind of thing, and I wanted to use that again, and so this was one of those. And so the whole idea behind this is that they're humanity's had to abandon the planet and all that, or just let it kind of rejuvenate. And so they're off at some space station or something, dropping dudes in suits to other universes or whatever. And I guess this has happened to be one. And in the background there's another one to this. It's
comic, wasn't it?
It's past due, the one with Rarity.
Yeah.
That's gonna be much later, in whatever this story is, and that's him coming back because with the earlier one, the Guardian one, he does something, and then they give him this medallion, and then he comes back to return it because that's the condition, and it's something around that.
Right, and so it's kind of like a humans meet ponies.
Yeah, but it's a very limited meeting. It's only this one guy, and he decided that no, I'm not going to tell them that there's this this lush world that we can go to.
Right, because you might ruin it.
Of some kind of friendship that he developed with the 2 princesses.
Right, right. Interesting. Well, that's really cool.
That's the background for that, pretty much.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those pieces that was very mysterious when you brought it up and you said I wanted to talk about this one. I had so many questions to do with what it could be and what it could symbolize. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more from this series in the future to kind of flesh it out more. All right, so I guess this isn't really related to what we were talking about before, but I wanted to ask you just a couple of kind of general questions about the fandom and ponies in general. And one of the things that I was kind of interested in was, do you watch any other fandom artists in particular, get inspiration from them, maybe chat with them? Is there kind of connections that you've made through the pony art fandom?
Oh yeah, definitely. Been talking with a lot of this, a Skype group, and it has about 13 people or so.
Okay, so who are some of the inspirations, or who are some of the people that you talk to?
There's what's his Virulence?
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's Russ, or what's his name?
Snap.
I think you know him.
Zap Apples, Snaps.
Yeah, Zap Apples.
Yeah.
There's Nad Nerve is on there, or however you say it. Brendan backwards with a D at the end.
Good old Nad.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nad Nerve.
Yeah, there's a few other people. January 3rd.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you guys, I guess you guys kind of, do you guys talk, collaborate, give each other ideas or critiques or things like that?
Sometimes. A lot of it's just a lot of
fluff
screwing around. It's a lot of nonsense.
I see.
It's a good time though.
Yeah, if Russ is in there, it's
It's usually how it goes between artists.
is Sour Spot in there too? Because then
Yes, he is.
yeah, that's gonna be a fun time.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that comes right up to about the end here. We've got a couple minutes left. And so I'm going to open it up to my other hosts here. Did you guys have any other questions for DimFann before we go?
I wanted to bring up one piece that I feel kind of really highlights your artistic talent. And this piece really spoke to me a lot. It kind of introduced me to the idea that ponies may have, philosophy in life.
Okay. I was really getting into it. I was like, oh, there's something that's affecting him. I wonder what it is. Like, it could be this big deal.
It's pizza.
And then I clicked on it and I was like, oh, I must have clicked the wrong link. Nope. It's pizza.
It's pizza on Rarity's horn.
Yeah.
Flawless.
It's just so random.
Do you think there's some sort, DimFann? Do you think, like, what's your philosophical background behind this piece? What's the deeper meaning?
Pepperoni pizza is really good.
Can I crochet that? I just love that quote. I want to crochet it onto a t-shirt.
Actually, a little known fact, now that you've been on our podcast and said that, that's going on your gravestone.
Wow.
Pepperoni pizza philosopher.
I mean, I have to agree with you there. Pepperoni pizza is awesome.
It's true. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I can say. It's not wrong.
Not false.
It's the only thing I can say about it. All right. Well, so before we go, I want to make sure that you get your dues, and so we'd love to hear from you about like what different places people can find you at. So obviously, there's DimFann on DeviantArt, and it seems like that might be the main place in which you post your pony stuff. But where are some of the other places that people can find you on?
I have a DimFann at Tumblr, but I don't really use it much.
Okay.
I just kind of I've been planning to put like sketches there, but I'm not really sure.
Okay, so
Like,
you're
I'm
using
probably
it as
gonna-
kind
I'm
of
probably
like a
gonna do that.
sketch dump as opposed.
Yeah.
And is there any other place, or do you just basically centralize yourself on DeviantArt and there you go?
Centralized on DeviantArt, but PG.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. And in case people, again, it'll be on the screen, but it's DimFann,
Yes.
Yeah.
2 N.
You have a YouTube too. Throw that out there.
Yeah, it's just time lapses.
Yeah, but I mean, still cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've got a website here that people can find all this information.
Oh yeah.
Right? So, or like
I need to work on that.
quote unquote website with like finger quotes
It's the
website.
Best $65 I've ever spent.
Nice.
Just plain text website.
Great. Okay, cool. Well, now that you've done a little bit of your plugs, excuse us for a minute while we do a bit of our plugs. Who wants to do it? Burn, Ted?
I'll do it.
Me? Cool. All right, go ahead. We'll do our plugs.
Okay, so you can find us on picardo.tv/Cutie Art Crusaders. That's where we stream. We have cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com, cutieartcrusaders@gmail.com, youtube.com/cutieartcrusaders, cutieartcrusaders.tumblr.com, facebook.com/cutieartcrusaders, and at cutieartcrusade on the Twitter.
We've got many places. And see, like as soon as DimFann's like, yeah, I've just got DeviantArt. As soon as we pull out like our 7 things, I almost feel like insecure about the fact that we're on all these different locations.
Yeah, but we still don't have a
It's like-
Match.com or an OkCupid account.
It's true.
Or anything like
We're
that.
narcissistic. We don't have a basic text website. Oh, we should get on that.
Yeah.
We're severely lacking in the basic text website market.
Dude, I know basic HTML.
Yeah. Dude, you know...
There you go. Get on it, Burn.
Burn, you know, like, extensive CSS. You can make a beautiful website.
Now I just got to register the domain name narcissistichorses.com.
Well, if you don't do it, I'm sure someone will.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're running up on time here, so I just wanted to say thank you, DimFann, for coming on and answering our silly questions about your art. You are a
it was
mysterious man, but it was very interesting to get a little peek inside of your head.
Yeah.
Just a peek.
Just a little peek.
I think that's all
That's all
of
you
our
want.
small
That's all
minds
you
can
want.
handle. Yeah.
Exactly. Otherwise, our brains would explode.
Yeah.
I think as we were mentioning before, sometimes you don't always want to give away all the details, right? You want to leave a little bit of mystery, leave people to interpret it on their own.
Right.
And I think your art kind of does a good job at doing that.
Leave
So,
people to stalk you on DeviantArt and tell you about their fan fictions.
yeah, people.
Burn, that's
Those
only
people,
you.
we don't know who they are, but they'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
it just again, thank you for coming.
Jokes aside, we're all really big fans. Like, I'm obviously a very big fan of your work too. So it's always really cool when we can get artists on that yes, for stuff, and get to talk to you about it, all that kind of good junk.
Don't let Bernd creepily whisper in your ear. Don't
He will do it.
Don't accept that as a thing.
He does.
that he's
What
allowed to
happened?
do.
He does it to
No,
our audience every week.
He does it to us every week.
Yeah.
It's very weird. So don't let him do that. That's too weird. All right. Shut up. You weirdo. All right. Well, that is everything for this episode of Cutie Art Crusaders. We'll be back next week with a normal episode, right, Bernd? Or are we having another guest on?
Oh.
We'll find out.
I'll take that as a no. So we'll be back on next week for a more normal episode where we feature art.
I think we should get
but with
that guy. What's his name? Atmospark on the show.
Oh yeah,
next
that
week.
guy,
Yeah.
that weirdo from Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be back next week.
He will be,
Hopefully,
yeah, hopefully.
maybe. Nowadays, I feel like people give me a day's notice. They're like, "Yeah, you're not gonna be on." It's like, "Oh, okay, sure, yeah, thanks." So hopefully he'll be on next week as well.
Yeah.
Without further ado, though, that's the end of this podcast. So thank you guys for listening. Whether or not you're on the live stream or YouTube, we love you all the same. My name is Rainbow Plasma.
My name's Burn.
I'm Photoguy317.
DimFann, I guess.
Yeah, there we
that's what
go.
I'm talking about.
And we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Bye.